The bookstore smelled of old paper and coffee. But to Caleb, it reeked of betrayal. He stood frozen, clutching a hardcover, his heart hammering as the words on the page sliced through him, his truth. His life, his pain, his love, his coming out was sprawled across these pages. And he hadn't written a single word. Caleb's fingers trembled as he flipped to the dedication, "To my nephew, who taught me courage." His stomach churned. His aunt, Eleanor, the woman who'd raised him after his parents died, had penned this. Without his permission. Without a whisper of warning. Now, it was a bestseller. And the world knew his story before he'd fully lived it. He was 18 when he told her he was gay, sitting at her kitchen table in their small Maine town, the ocean roaring outside. Eleanor had hugged him, her lavender perfume wrapping around him like a promise. "I'm proud of you," she'd said, her voice steady. He believed her. That moment, raw and fragile, was now chapter 3, titled The Confession. He scanned the page, his breath hitching at the accuracy his stuttered words, the way he'd stared at the chipped mug to avoid her eyes. It was all there, exposed, like a wound ripped open. The bookstore buzzed around him. A woman nearby gushed to her friend. "This book is so moving. So real." Caleb wanted to scream. Real. It was his real. Stolen and sold. He slammed the book shut, drawing stares. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. He ignored it, his pulse racing. How could she do this? How could the woman who'd bandaged his knees and taught him to drive turn his life into a literary spectacle? He stumbled outside, the cold November air biting his face. The town of Bar Harbor stretched before him, its quaint streets lined with shops and flickering holiday lights. He'd grown up here, in Eleanor's weathered seaside cottage. After his parents' car accident when he was 10, she'd been his anchor, stern but loving, a writer who filled their home with books and dreams. Now, those dreams felt like a trap. Caleb's mind spiraled back to 2 years ago, when he'd met Jamie. Jamie, with his crooked smile and paint-splattered jeans, had been a summer tourist, sketching the coastline. They'd met at the pier, Caleb tripping over Jamie's easel, both laughing as seagulls squawked above. That summer, Caleb fell in love for the first time, each kiss tasting of salt and freedom. He'd told Eleanor everything, how Jamie's hand felt in his, how they danced under the stars, how he'd finally felt whole. She'd listened, her eyes soft, her pen always scratching in her notebook. He hadn't thought twice about it. She was a writer. She was always jotting something. Now, he saw it clearly. Those late-night talks, his tears, his triumphs, they weren't just shared moments. They were research. The book's cover stared at him from the bookstore window, the title in bold white letters against a stormy sea. His truth, more like her truth, spun into a narrative that had landed her interviews on morning shows while Caleb was blindsided. He walked toward the harbor, the wind tugging at his scarf. His phone buzzed again. Eleanor. He let it go to voicemail, her cheerful tone cutting through. "Caleb, I'm at the bookstore. Where are you? We need to talk about the book." The book. Not his book. Not their book. Hers. He stopped at the pier, the same spot where he'd kissed Jamie under a pink sunset. Jamie, who'd left for college in Boston, promising to stay in touch. They hadn't. Life had pulled them apart. But Caleb had held onto the memory. A private treasure. Now, it was Chapter 7. First Love. With Jamie's name changed to Ethan, but every detail painfully intact the way he'd hummed off key. The freckle on his left ear. Caleb's chest tightened. Did Jamie know? Had he seen his summer immortalized in print? The betrayal stung deeper because Eleanor had always been his safe harbor. She'd taught him to be proud, to stand tall in a town where some still whispered about people like him. She'd marched with him at the tiny Pride parade last year, her arm linked with his. Had that been for her, too? A scene for her next chapter. He sank onto a bench, the sea stretching endlessly before him. The book wasn't just a violation, it was a mirror, forcing him to relive every moment he'd fought to own. He thought of his friends, his co-workers at the cafe, the strangers reading his life. Did they pity him? Admire him? Judge him? He didn't know which was worse. His phone lit up again. A text this time. Caleb. Please. I didn't mean to hurt you. Let me explain. He stared at the words, his thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of him wanted to hurl the phone into the ocean. Part of him wanted answers. Why hadn't she told him? Why had she taken his story and made it hers? The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples. Caleb stood, shoving his hands in his pockets. He wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. But he couldn't run from this. His truth was out there. In every bookstore. On every shelf. And somehow, he had to reclaim it. Caleb's boots crunched on the gravel path leading to Eleanor's cottage. The house loomed ahead, its white clapboard weathered by years of salt and wind. He hadn't been back since he'd moved into his own apartment above the cafe 6 months ago, chasing independence. Now, he felt like a kid again, small and uncertain, standing on her doorstep. He knocked, his breath visible in the chilly air. The door swung open, and there she was, Eleanor, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her eyes searching his. Caleb, she said, her voice soft but urgent. Thank God you're here. He stepped inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards grounding him. The living room smelled of her herbal tea and the faint must of old books. A stack of his truth sat on the coffee table, their glossy covers catching the lamplight. Caleb's jaw tightened. Explain, he said, his voice low, barely containing the storm inside him. Eleanor gestured to the couch, but he stayed standing, arms crossed. She sighed, sinking into an armchair. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she began. I wanted to tell you before the book came out, but the publisher rushed the release. And I rushed. Caleb cut in, his voice sharp. You had years, Eleanor. Years while you were writing it, stealing my life. He paced, his sneakers scuffing the rug. You didn't even change the details. My first kiss, my fights with Dad before he died, it's all there. How could you? Her face crumpled, but she didn't look away. I thought I was honoring you, she said. Your courage, your journey, it inspired me. I wanted the world to see how strong you are, how beautiful your story is. My story, he snapped. Not yours to tell. He grabbed a copy of the book, holding it up like evidence. You made me a character, Eleanor. You turned Jamie into Ethan. You didn't even ask me. She flinched at Jamie's name. I changed names to protect you, she said. I thought. You thought wrong. His voice cracked, and he hated it. He didn't want her to see him break. Not now. You were my family. You were supposed to protect me, not sell me. Eleanor's eyes glistened. Caleb, I never meant to hurt you. I wrote it because I love you. Because I saw you struggle and triumph. And I thought sharing it could help others. Kids like you. Families like ours. He laughed. Bitter. Help others. You didn't help me. You didn't even warn me. He tossed the book onto the table, its thud echoing. I found out in a bookstore. Eleanor. Strangers were reading my life while I stood there like an idiot. She stood, reaching for him. But he stepped back. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have told you. I was scared you'd say no. And I thought it was bigger than us. Bigger than us. He shook his head, incredulous. It's my life. My pain. My love. His voice broke on the last word. And he turned away, staring at the fireplace. A photo of them sat on the mantel at 16, grinning, her arm around him. He couldn't look at it. I know I messed up, she said, her voice trembling. But the book's out there now. It's helping people. I've gotten letters, kids who felt alone. Parents who didn't understand until they read it. Your story is saving lives. Caleb. He spun around, his eyes blazing. It's not their story to have. It's mine. His chest heaved, and he felt the weight of every word he'd kept inside since that summer with Jamie. You took the one thing I had that was mine. Eleanor sank back into the chair, her hands covering her face. For a moment, they were silent. The only sound the distant crash of waves. Caleb's anger simmered. But beneath it, something else stirred grief. He'd trusted her completely. She'd been his confidant, his rock. Now, he didn't know who she was. I need to know why, he said finally, his voice quieter. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me to decide? She looked up, her cheeks wet. Because I was selfish, she admitted. I saw your story as art, as something universal. I thought I could share it without losing you. I was wrong. Her honesty hit him like a punch. He wanted to hate her, to storm out and never look back. But he saw the pain in her eyes. The same pain he'd seen when she'd lost her brother, his father. She wasn't a villain. She was human. Flawed. Like him. I need time, he said, his voice hoarse. I can't do this right now. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll be here. Whenever you're ready. He left without another word, the door clicking shut behind him. Outside, the stars glittered above the ocean, cold and distant. He walked toward town, his mind a tangle of anger and hurt. He didn't know if he could forgive her, but he knew he couldn't erase her from his life. She was family, for better or worse. His phone buzzed a new email. The subject line stopped him cold. His truth from Jamie. His heart skipped. Jamie had read the book. Jamie knew. Caleb's hands shook as he opened the email, the glow of his phone casting shadows on the pier. Jamie's words stared back at him. I read the book. I know it's about us. Can we talk? I'm in Boston. The message was short, but it hit like a tidal wave. Jamie, his first love, the boy who'd painted his world in colors he'd never known, was reaching out after 2 years of silence. He read it again, his breath catching. The book had ripped open his past, and now it was pulling Jamie back into his life. He typed a reply, I am in Bar Harbor. I didn't know about the book. Can you come here? And hit send before he could overthink it. His stomach knotted. What would Jamie say? Did he feel betrayed too? Caleb wandered back to his apartment, the email replaying in his mind. He lived above the cafe where he worked, a cramped space with mismatched furniture and a view of the harbor. He dropped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. Memories of that summer flooded back Jamie's laughter. The way he'd sketch Caleb while he napped on the beach. The quiet nights when they'd shared their fears. Caleb had been terrified of coming out, of losing the only home he'd known. Jamie had been fearless, already out to his family, urging Caleb to be true to himself. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. There they were, grinning at the county fair, Jamie's arms slung around him. Another of them on the pier, Jamie's lips brushing his cheek. Caleb's throat tightened. He hadn't looked at these in months, afraid of the ache they'd bring. Now, the book had made those moments public, and Jamie was back, stirring it all up. The next morning, Caleb woke to a text, I'll be there tomorrow. Meet me at the pier. His heart raced. Tomorrow. He spent the day distracted, spilling coffee at work and burning a batch of scones. His co-workers noticed, but he brushed them off. How could he explain that his life was unraveling because of a book? When Jamie arrived, Caleb was already at the pier, the wind tugging at his jacket. Jamie looked the same, yet different, taller. His hair longer, but that crooked smile still there. He wore a green scarf that matched his eyes, and Caleb's chest ached at the sight. Hey, Jamie said, stopping a few feet away, hands in his pockets. Hey, Caleb echoed, his voice barely audible. They stood there, the sea crashing below, the silence heavy. Finally, Jamie spoke. I saw the book in a store in Boston. I recognized your story right away. Ethan. He raised an eyebrow, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Caleb flushed. I didn't know she was writing it. I swear. Jamie nodded, his expression softening. I believe you. But it was weird. Reading about us. Our summer. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. It brought everything back. The good and the bad. Caleb swallowed, his eyes stinging. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this. It's not your fault, Jamie said. But it hurt, seeing it out there. I thought what we had was ours. It was, Caleb whispered. It still is. They sat on a bench, the same one where they'd kissed years ago. Jamie told him about college, about his art, how he'd tried to move on but never quite could. Caleb listened, the familiarity of Jamie's voice soothing and painful all at once. I missed you, Jamie admitted, his eyes meeting Caleb's. Reading the book, it made me realize how much. Caleb's heart pounded. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between them. But the book loomed like a shadow. I missed you too, he said. But I'm so angry. Jamie, She took everything our story, my coming out, and made it hers. Jamie nodded, his hand brushing Caleb's on the bench. Then take it back. Make it yours again. The words stuck with Caleb as they walked along the pier, talking until the sun sank low. Jamie was staying in town for a few days, and they agreed to meet again. As Caleb watched him walk away, he felt a spark of something he hadn't in years: hope. But hope was fragile, and Eleanor's book still hung over him. That night, he sat at his desk, staring at a blank notebook. Jamie's words echoed, "Take it back." Could he tell his own story? Not as a victim of Eleanor's pen, but as the author of his own life. He started writing, the words spilling out raw, messy, real. Not for a bestseller list, but for him. For Jamie. For the truth. Caleb's notebook filled quickly. Pages of scrawled thoughts about love, betrayal, and identity. Writing felt like reclaiming stolen ground. Each word a step toward owning his story. But every sentence brought him back to Eleanor. To the question he couldn't escape: could he forgive her? He met Jamie again the next day at a cafe. The one where Caleb worked. The place was quiet. The lunch rush over, and they sat in a corner booth, coffee steaming between them. Jamie leaned forward, his sketchbook open, doodling absent-mindedly. "So, what are you going to do about the book?" he asked, his pencil pausing. Caleb stirred his coffee, the spoon clinking. "I'm writing," he said. "Not sure what it'll be yet." A response. "Maybe. My side of the story." Jamie's eyes lit up. "That's it. Tell the world who you are, not who she made you out to be." Caleb nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Eleanor was a celebrated author. Her words carried weight. He was just a barista with a notebook. What if no one cares? He asked, his voice low. "They'll care," Jamie said firmly. "Because it's you. It's real." Their conversation shifted to lighter things: Jamie's art, Caleb's job, the way Bar Harbor felt frozen in time. But the ease of their old connection was there, threading through every word. When Jamie's hand brushed his, Caleb didn't pull away. It felt like a promise, fragile but real. That evening, Caleb went to the library, a place he'd avoided since the book's release. He needed research, something to ground his writing. The librarian, Mrs. Carter, greeted him warmly, oblivious to the storm in his life. "Heard about your aunt's book," she said, smiling. "You must be so proud." Caleb forced a smile, his stomach twisting. "Yeah, something like that." He grabbed a few books on memoir writing and settled in a quiet corner. As he read, he realized Eleanor's book wasn't just a betrayal, it was a craft. She'd woven his life into a narrative that resonated, that sold. He hated her for it, but he couldn't deny her skill. His phone buzzed a news alert. Eleanor was doing a reading at the bookstore tonight. His first instinct was to avoid it, but something pulled at him. He needed to see her, to hear her read his life in her voice. Maybe then he'd understand. The bookstore was packed when he arrived. Slipping in at the back, Eleanor stood at a podium, her voice steady as she read from Chapter 5, The Weight of Secrets. It was about the months before Caleb came out, the fear that choked him every time he saw a disapproving glance in town. She read with emotion, her eyes glistening. And the crowd leaned in, captivated. Caleb's chest tightened. She wasn't just reading, she was performing his pain. The audience clapped when she finished, some wiping tears. A woman near Caleb whispered, "It's so raw, so honest." He wanted to scream that it was his rawness, his honesty. After the reading, Eleanor signed books, her smile warm but strained. Caleb stayed in the shadows, watching. A teenage boy approached her, clutching a copy. "This book helped me," he said, his voice shaking. "I came out to my mom last week. She's trying to understand. Because of you." Eleanor's face softened, and she hugged the boy. Caleb's throat burned. He hated that her book was helping people. It complicated things. It made her betrayal less black and white. He left before she saw him, his mind a mess. Outside, he called Jamie. "I went to her reading," he admitted. "I don't know what to feel. She's helping people, but it's still my life." Jamie was quiet for a moment. "Maybe it's both," he said. "Maybe it's wrong and good at the same time. But you get to decide what it means now." Caleb hung up, Jamie's words echoing. He walked home, the notebook heavy in his bag. He wrote late into the night, pouring out his anger, his love, his confusion. The words weren't perfect, but they were his. For the first time, he felt like he was taking back control. The next morning, Caleb woke to a voicemail from Eleanor. "I saw you at the reading," she said, her voice soft. "I wish you'd stayed. I'm doing another one tomorrow. Please come. I want to talk." He deleted it, his heart pounding. He wasn't ready, but the idea of facing her again tugged at him. He met Jamie at the beach, the November air sharp but clear. They walked along the shore, skipping stones across the waves. Jamie talked about his latest art project, a series inspired by their summer together. "I didn't realize how much it meant until I read the book," he said, tossing a stone. "It made me miss you." Caleb stopped, his sneakers sinking into the sand. "I miss you too," he said, the words spilling out. "But I'm scared. The book, it's messed me up. I don't know who I am anymore." Jamie turned to him, his eyes steady. "You're still you. The book doesn't change that." He stepped closer, his hand finding Caleb's. "And I'm here, if you want me to be." Caleb's breath caught. He wanted to kiss Jamie, to fall back into the ease of that summer. But the weight of the book held him back. "I need to figure this out first," he said. "Eleanor. The book. Me." Jamie nodded, squeezing his hand. "I'll wait." That night, Caleb went to Eleanor's second reading, his notebook tucked under his arm. The bookstore was even more crowded, the air thick with anticipation. Eleanor read from Chapter 8, The Aftermath, about Caleb's life after coming out his first pride, his fights with classmates, his quiet moments of joy. Her voice broke as she read, and Caleb saw the love in her words, even if it was tangled in betrayal. Afterward, he lingered as the crowd thinned. Eleanor spotted him and froze, her pen hovering over a book. "Caleb," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He approached, his heart racing. "Why didn't you ask me?" he said, the question burning. You could have told me. I might have said yes. Her eyes filled with tears. I was afraid you'd say no, she admitted. And I thought I was doing something good. For you. For others. You didn't trust me, he said, his voice steady but raw. You took my choice away. She nodded, wiping her cheek. I know. And I'll regret it forever. But I'm proud of you, Caleb. Not just the book the man you've become. He wanted to stay angry, but her words cracked something in him. He saw the woman who'd raised him, who'd stayed up late helping with homework, who'd cheered at his graduation. I'm writing, he said finally. My own story, not yours. Her face lit up, a mix of relief and pride. I want to read it, she said. When you're ready. He didn't promise anything, but he didn't walk away either. They stood there, the bookstore quiet around them, a fragile bridge forming between them. When he left, he felt lighter, like he'd reclaimed a piece of himself. He texted Jamie, talked to her. It's not okay yet, but maybe it will be. Jamie's reply was instant, proud of you. Caleb smiled, the first real smile in days. He opened his notebook and wrote, the words flowing easier now. He wasn't just writing for himself anymore, was writing for the boy at the reading. For Jamie. For anyone who felt alone. His story wasn't just pain. It was hope. Caleb's writing became a ritual. Late nights at his desk with coffee and music, pouring his truth onto the page. He wrote about Jamie, about Eleanor, about the small victories and crushing fears of being himself in a world that didn't always understand. Each word felt like a rebellion against the book that had stolen his voice. Jamie stayed in town, renting a room at a bed and breakfast. They spent days together, exploring old haunts, rebuilding what they'd lost. One afternoon, they hiked Acadia National Park, the trails dusted with frost. At the summit, overlooking the ocean, Jamie pulled out his sketchbook. I drew you, he said, showing Caleb a pencil sketch's face. Softer than he remembered, eyes bright with possibility. Caleb's heart swelled. You make me look better than I am, he teased. No, Jamie said. Serious. That's how I see you. They kissed, slow and tentative, the wind swirling around them. It wasn't like that some merit was better, grounded in something deeper. But Caleb still felt the shadow of the book. He told Jamie about his writing, about wanting to publish it someday. I want people to hear my voice, he said. Not Eleanor's version of me. Jamie nodded. You will. And I'll be there when you do. Back in town, Caleb faced another challenge, the community. Word had spread that he was the inspiration for his truth. At the cafe, customers whispered, some offering praise, others judgment. A coworker, Sarah, pulled him aside one day. I read it, she said. It's amazing. But, did you want it out there? No, Caleb admitted. But I'm trying to make it mine again. She hugged him. Fierce. You've got this. The support surprised him. But so did the criticism. An older regular, Mr. Thompson, muttered about that kind of lifestyle being flaunted. Caleb bit his tongue. But it stung. He channeled it into his writing, turning pain into power. He visited Eleanor again, this time at her invitation for dinner. The cottage felt different now, less like a battleground. She'd cooked his favorite clam chowder and they ate in cautious silence. Finally, she spoke. "I'm pulling the book from the next print run," she said. "It's not right without your consent." Caleb paused, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "You do that?" She nodded. "It's your story. I should have respected that." He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted the book gone, but part of him remembered the boy at the reading, the lives it had touched. "Don't pull it," he said finally. "But I want credit. And I want to tell my own story." Eleanor's eyes widened. "You're writing?" "Yeah," he said, a small smile breaking through. "And it's mine." They talked late into the night. Not just about the book, but about everything his parents. Her fears. Their shared history. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Caleb left feeling lighter, his notebook heavier with new pages. He was building something real. Something that could stand beside Eleanor's book and shine on its own. Winter settled over Bar Harbor, blanketing the town in snow. Caleb's writing grew stronger, his voice clearer with every page. He and Jamie spent more time together, their connection deepening. One night, they lay on a blanket by the harbor, staring at the stars. "I'm thinking of moving back," Jamie said. "If you're okay with it." Caleb turned to him, heart racing. "More than okay." They kissed, the cold forgotten. And Caleb felt like he was finally living his story. Not just writing it. But the book still lingered. Eleanor had agreed to credit him in future editions. And they were working on a joint statement for her next reading, acknowledging his role. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Caleb's manuscript was nearly done. A raw, honest account of his life. He shared it with Jamie, who read it in one sitting, tears in his eyes. "This is you," Jamie said. "This is everything." Encouraged, Caleb sent a sample to a small press in Portland. To his shock, they responded within days, requesting the full manuscript. "They want it," he told Jamie, stunned. "They think it could sell." Jamie grinned. "Told you." Caleb's confidence grew, but so did his nerves. Publishing meant exposing himself again, this time on his terms. He met with Eleanor to discuss it, sitting in her living room with mugs of tea. "I'm scared," he admitted. "What if it's not enough?" "It will be," she said, "because it's yours. And I'll support you, whatever you need." Her words meant more than he expected. They were rebuilding trust. Slowly, like stacking stones. She shared her own fears about aging, about losing him, about her legacy. For the first time, Caleb saw her not just as his aunt, but as a person, flawed and trying. The town's reaction to the book shifted too. At a community meeting, Caleb spoke about his experience, his voice shaking but strong. "My story was told without my permission," he said. "But I'm telling it now. And I hope you'll listen." The room was quiet, then erupted in applause. Mr. Thompson, the grumbling regular, approached him after. I was wrong, he said gruffly. You're a good kid. It wasn't much, but it was something. Caleb's manuscript was accepted, with a release date set for next fall. He and Jamie celebrated with a quiet dinner, toasting to new beginnings. To your truth, Jamie said, raising his glass. To our truth, Caleb corrected, smiling. Caleb stood at the bookstore, his own book in his hands. My truth. The cover simple but bold. His name in stark black letters. It was a year after Eleanor's book had turned his world upside down. And now he was here, at his own signing. The crowd was small but warm. Friends and strangers alike holding copies, their faces expectant. He read a passage, his voice steady, about the summer with Jamie, about finding himself in a world that tried to define him. The words felt like a release, like exhaling after holding his breath too long. When he finished, the applause was soft but real, and he saw Eleanor in the back, her eyes shining with pride. Jamie was there too, sketching in the corner, his presence a quiet anchor. They'd decided to try again, to build something new. It wasn't perfect, nothing was, but it was theirs. After the signing, a teenage girl approached, her copy of My Truth clutched tight. Your book helped me, she said, her voice small. I'm not out yet, but I think I can be. Caleb's throat tightened. He hugged her, the way Eleanor had hugged that boy a year ago. You'll be okay, he said. You're enough. Later, he and Eleanor walked to the pier, the place where so much had begun. I'm proud of you, she said, her voice soft. And I'm sorry, again, for everything. I know, he said. I forgive you. The words were hard but true. They'd both grown, both learned. She'd given him a home, and he'd given her a story. Now, he'd taken it back and made it his own. As they stood there, the sea stretching before them, Caleb felt whole. His story wasn't just about pain or betrayal, it was about love, resilience, and the courage to speak. Jamie joined them, his hand slipping into Caleb's. The three of them stood in silence, the waves a steady rhythm, the future open and bright. Caleb's book wouldn't be a bestseller, not like Eleanor's, but it was his, every word a piece of his heart. And that was enough.